All right, so we have breaking news, very broken, and I can't make this up. So we have a union leader threatening a company with strikes who is already actively shutting down their plants. Yes, I cannot make this up. So let's pull this up. So we have the UAW president. His name's Sean Fain, uses the DNC speech to threaten Stellantis and praise Harris. So here's what I want to talk about here. So Stellantis, which is the company who owns Jeep, Dodge, and Ram, they're going through a very hard time right now, and they need to limit their production. So what are they doing? They're closing down some plants. They're pulling back on some of their shifts. They are slowing down production. And now we have Sean Fain, who is threatening because they are shutting down production to shut down more of their production with these strikes. And you know what? I think if I was the CEO of Stellantis, I think I would call the dude's bluff and say, you know what? Times are getting slow a little bit. So come on. Yeah. Bring them to me. It would actually help us out. Sean, let me send you a thank you letter after you do this. I'll send you a gift basket. This is what we need, because we need to blame it not on us. No, we don't need to blame it on people not wanting to buy our vehicles for us making too expensive vehicles that no one freaking wants. No, we would like to blame it on you. Sean, please, will you do this for me? Will you shut down all this production? Will you bring your people home? That's what we did. They need a good vacation. Look, I'm not anti-union by any stretch. I'm not pro-union by any stretch. But if I were one of the UAW members, I would want Sean to shut his mouth at this point, because everyone sees exactly what I'm seeing. The workers have to see it. If you're following the car market at all, you have to see it. These stock prices have absolutely tanked because there are too many vehicles everywhere. Production has to come to a halt. And you know what? Strikes are the easiest way for them to come to a halt. So yes, Stellantis would absolutely want this. So you know what, Sean, you need to stop threatening with this, because you know what? I think they might actually want it. All right, so let's talk about this just a little bit. So Stellantis, in an August 20th statement, said that the Illinois plant reopening had been delayed, and this is what Sean Fain, the UAW, is threatening over, is because this plant was supposed to be reopened by now, and it hasn't been. And the reason why it hasn't been is because Stellantis doesn't need any more production getting out to these dealers, because the dealers can't handle it. Allocations are already being taken down. You've seen it on this channel. You've seen it on our main channel. You've seen it if you watch anything else on YouTube about the car market. There are these Ram trucks sitting freaking everywhere. They have to stop production. I've even seen 2022 trucks, tons of them, sitting on dealership lots that they can't sell. Stellantis is suing a North Carolina dealer right now because that dealership is trying to turn over their franchise. So Stellantis has to buy back their trucks. They have 3,800 2020. I don't know if it's 2022 trucks, but they have 3,800 fleet vehicles. A lot of them are going to be those 2022 Ram trucks that they are trying to unload back to Stellantis. It's $180 million worth. Yes, they want production to slow down. Sean, the CEO is probably begging Sean Fain to call more strikes. Anyway, so the company remained committed. They said they remain committed to the 2023 contract terms with the UAW. So after these remarks, this is from Sean Fain. The UAW said 7 local chapters were prepared to file grievances against Stellantis for backtracking on a promised timeline to reopen an idled assembly plant in Belvidere, and the union said it was prepared to use the right to strike over product commitments and investments gained in the 2023 contract if necessary. So this is a big deal for the UAW, because really, if they don't open up these plants, there's not available jobs. There are already workers that are sitting on the sidelines right now that are not assembling these vehicles, and then we're getting more cuts. Stellantis just closed down another shift surrounding the Ram Classic. So this is one of the cheaper vehicles. This is another example. Say cheaper vehicles, cheaper trucks is like the $50,000 trim, whereas most of your other trims are going to be 60, 70, $80,000. But the cheaper one, Stellantis is cutting. And this is showing you where the company is going. Sean Fain, in his defense, has some grounds to say that, okay, the CEO looks like they're just running the company into the ground, which everybody else is seeing this too. It absolutely looks like Stellantis is running the company into the ground because they're choosing these bigger, higher margin vehicles that a lot of people can't afford right now. And this is causing dealerships not to be able to sell stuff. And thus they're turning down allocation. And then the workers are having to take the blunt of it, because if the dealerships aren't taking the vehicles, production has to slow. And then the workforce is going to get cut because of that. But what's been happening in Stellantis is that their Ram 1500 Classic, they're cutting the lower margin, the cheaper truck that they produce. And at that same plant, they have two shifts of workers that are assembling the Wagoneers, the Grand Wagoneers. But guess what? Those shifts did not get cut. So you can see where Stellantis is putting their money. They're putting their money, their labor into the highest margin products that they can, and they're cutting down the lowest one. So I just recently went to a Jeep Dodge Ram dealership, and they had about 15 or 20 Wagoneers and Grand Wagoneers sitting on their dealership. You know how many Ram 1500 Classics they have? The cheap 1500, $50,000 truck. And $50,000 is not cheap, but that's their cheapest truck they produce. They had one of them sitting on the lot. So they had 90, 100, 110, and I saw one Grand Wagoneer for $123,000 at this dealership. They had plenty of those, but only one of these cheap trucks. So let's hear what they said. So corporate greed, this is from Sean Fain. Corporate greed is alive and well in the auto industry. And this is exactly what we're talking about with them going to the higher end product that people do not want and cannot afford. Fain said in his roughly 10-minute speech, "Let me be clear. Stellantis must keep the promises they made to America in our union contract, and the UAW will take whatever action necessary at Stellantis or any other corporation to stand up and hold corporate America accountable." And in this, yes, he's singling out Stellantis, but guess what? You're going to have production cuts. You've already seen production cuts from Ford. Later on down the road, as things get tough, you're probably going to start seeing some production cuts come out of GM also. Any of these automakers that have these big trucks that are getting very hard for people to get loans on. We've seen that credit is getting tighter. And as credit gets tighter, $90,000 trucks are not going to move. They're already having a hard time moving right now. More production cuts are coming. So if Sean Fain is blasting out Stellantis right now for plant closures, when you see Ford go and start closing down some shifts at some of their plants, that's probably, in my opinion, it's coming. Going to a lot of Ford dealerships, seeing a lot of numbers as far as days of inventory out of these Ford dealership lots. Talk to a lot of salespeople, talk to some franchise managers. It's very, very hard to sell these more expensive products right now. These big trucks, they're not moving. Look at even a brand like Toyota. I mean, I know they've had some engine problems come out of a lot of their Tundras, but even their Tacomas, those are the only things that are sitting on the lots. Been to a Toyota dealership recently. They didn't have any RAV4s. They didn't have any Camrys, any Corollas. They had almost no vehicles on their main lot other than Tundras and Tacomas. Trucks are a problem across the industry. We're seeing it right here, right now. We'll go down, and in fact, the UAW agreed to language that expressly allows the company to modify product investments. This is coming from Stellantis. So let me start over. So Stellantis has said that the UAW agreed to language that allows the company to modify product investments and employment levels. Therefore, the union cannot legally strike over a violation of this letter at this time. So what they're saying is that there's a clause in the language from the contract that allows the company to modify product investments and employee levels. So if sales go down, then Stellantis should be able to pull back their workforce. This is something that that is going to really probably help the Stellantis in whatever kind of case they're going to go through with the UAW, whatever kind of contract problems. And Sean Fain is going to continue to talk a big game. This is his job, right? This is what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to come out, be strong. This is why he's in the role that he's in. And we've seen it now over the last couple years that he was able to get them this big contract. But this was my fear the whole time, because they almost negotiated this contract at the worst possible time. We had already peaked in the car market for what these dealers could take on their lots, for what they could get for these trucks. So you have them pretty much negotiating this contract and getting this contract right after the peak and on the way down. So I always made this joke saying, okay, well, after the strikes were done, we got the contract. Yeah, everybody come back to work. We're ready to have you. Hugs. Everybody's good. Okay, next day, everybody stop. Okay, I need you to go back home because we got too many trucks. Dealers can't take them anymore. So we're all done. And this is what we're seeing now, unfortunately. And I don't want anyone to lose their jobs, but the writing was on the wall for a lot of these union workers, because guess what? They're making a lot more money now. That means all of that labor cost is going to be baked into the cost of the vehicle. Maybe it's not a huge percentage. I see that a lot in my comments, that labor doesn't account for all that much of the actual makeup of the vehicle. I don't know. I haven't done the breakdown, but whatever percentage it is, that's going to get tacked on to the price of the vehicle. Because guess what? The manufacturer, they're not going to just stomach that extra cost. They're going to pass the savings on to the consumer, and the consumer cannot handle that extra bit that's going on top of these trucks. They couldn't handle what the price of these trucks were to begin with. Recently, I've talked to a GM from Nissan. Nissan is having equally hard time as Stellantis is right now. And what he complained about so much was that the MSRPs were out of control, not just at Nissan, but across the board. And he felt like the only way that they were going to be able to start moving vehicles, take more allocation, and take more production from these manufacturers was to get a lower price point to their consumers, get a lower price point on a lot of these vehicles, these bigger trucks. When he had like some Frontiers out there, I know they don't make the Titans anymore, but the more expensive vehicles, the Pathfinder, stuff like that, were not moving for him. You know what was moving? Like the little Versas and the small Sentras, the stuff that was priced at that $20,000 to $23,000 price point. They were able to sell those things. Guess what? There's not a lot of money for the dealership in that. There's not a lot of money for the manufacturer in those either. And that's why Stellantis has leaned away from that. And a lot of these manufacturers you're seeing doing the same thing. GM and Ford are doing the exact same thing, but it's hurting volumes for them. And we're seeing that in their stock prices. We're seeing that at the dealers. We're seeing it from the consumer level. I'm seeing it all over my comments. You're saying prices are just too freaking high. Nobody can pay them. So anyway, this is a second channel. I don't know if you actually know that or not. You probably just get fed this video and you feel like it's just one of Brandon's videos, whatever. But just double check for me and make sure you're actually subscribed to the channel. It's free to you, and it really helps me out a lot. Make sure you like the video. Put a comment and let me know what you think about this whole situation, what you think is going to happen to Stellantis in the future. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.